to the August 3rd meeting of the Columbia Rotary Club. It's great to see everybody. Thanks for being here. I know we're getting to the end of summer, especially for those of you who have children or grandchildren who are headed back to school. It definitely feels like it, but it's frightening. Okay, so to get started today, I think we're going to have Brian come up and do our invocation.
So before I get started, I just want to reassure Bob Diggle I have not been kicked out of the Citadel because I have my Carolina shirt on. Okay? I'm still there. I just got this for my birthday. If you would, let's pray. Father God, we come to you today and we want to invite you into this room. Wherever two or more of us are gathered that believe in you, you're going to be there. And I just pray that you're here. There's so much trouble in the world. There's so many things going on, and we here in the Rotary have been tasked with being the leaders that you would want us to be in this world to help change minds and attitudes, perceptions, and thoughts to include others. And Lord, I just pray for each and every family represented here. I pray for each one of these leaders today. I pray for our military that's deployed. I pray for our military that's not deployed, and for those that have lost loved ones through the course of war. Be with them. Protect our country, Father. Protect our leaders. Protect our approach. I was reading The Rules of Civility by George Washington the other day, and it was a reminder that everything is founded on the principles that you set forth, and that is to love each other just like we love ourselves. And Father, we put you at the forefront. So today, Lord, just take this food, bless it to the nourishment of our bodies, and help us to go out and be the light and the salt in the world that you would ask us to be. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Okay, if you remain standing, we will. There we go. If you remain standing, we'll sing the national anthem. And one last thing before we sit, if you will please recite the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you. And now let's see, do we have any visitors and guests? Rebecca will bring you the microphone. I don't know if I saw any. Aside from our speaker, do we have anybody new joining us today? Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you all for being here, and Rebecca will be our...
I'll see you back for questions.
Yes, she will be our roving reporter shortly. And for health and happiness, today I am Mike. And Mike was unable to be here today. Let's see. So I will tell you what our CART message for the day is. Developing a new drug takes over a decade and billions of dollars and has a high failure rate. Current research is beginning to experiment with potentially smarter and faster strategy of drug repurposing. I know you've all seen those commercials on TV where you thought whatever it was used to be for something, and then you see a commercial and now it's for something else. So there's a lot of research in that. Researchers are studying widely used medications for diabetes and heart health to see if they can be adapted to protect the brain as well. Recent clinical data revealed some promise. Certain diabetes medications have been associated with a lower risk of developing Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. In addition, studies combining standard heart health drugs show that managing vascular risk factors can slow cognitive decline and preserve brain health. Yes, overall good health is good health. So don't forget, Blue Buckets, we have a $12,000 goal for this year, so every dollar counts. And now I would like to ask Phil Brummett if he would come up, in keeping with our Meet Your Board member moments. We're going to have Phil just introduce himself and tell you a little bit about himself. And thank you very much. Phil, come on up.
Good afternoon. If you don't know me, my name is Phil Brummett. I've been in this club for 5 years, and I joined Rotary originally in 1991. So I've been around for a while. I was raised in the Washington, D.C. area. I spent 30 years as a design engineer, professional engineer, doing heating and air conditioning, plumbing, mechanical, electrical work for commercial buildings. In 2020, my wife of 3 years and I retired here to Chapin. Now, Chapin does have a Rotary Club, but they meet at 7:30 in the morning. I knew there was no way I was going to make a 7:30 in the morning meeting. When Laura asked me to do this, she asked me to mention why I joined Rotary. It was actually threefold. Number one, Rotarians tend to be very knowledgeable about the local area and what's going on with politics and community and investment and development, which was the field I played in, so I thought that was important. I also needed to polish my interpersonal skills. There's a joke about engineers. You can spot an extroverted engineer because he looks at your shoes instead of his own when he talks to you. But the most important reason I joined was my family always stressed service. My mom worked for the Literacy Council, and she volunteered through any number of things. My dad worked for Habitat for Humanity. They were constantly giving back to the community, and I saw this as a great avenue to do that. So I'm involved with the bocce tournament, I'm involved with the Little Free Library, and anything else that happens to come up. My role on the board is treasurer, which primarily means I kind of keep an eye on the finances, ask questions about expenditures, budgets, things like that. Great.
Thank you, Phil. And thank you in advance for your service again for this year. And so now we'll just move right along to our program. So we have had a couple of little changes. We still have the same group represented, but we've had a substitution. Everybody is well on their toes today. And I will say, if I have to run out ahead of time, Kelly will ding us out. But it's Greek festival time already, if you guys can believe it. So we started baking today, and you know, if somebody set something on fire, I may have to run out. But with that said, Denise Teasdale is going to come up and introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker, Rob Ronski. Rob is an EMS navigator for the South Carolina EMS Association and has more than 30 years of experience in emergency medical services, fire services, public health. And throughout his career, he has served in a variety of leadership roles, including the South Carolina State EMS Chief. and he has been instrumental in improving EMS systems across the state. He is also what I call a shipmate for you all as a Navy veteran. He's a volunteer firefighter and someone who is truly passionate about serving others and strengthening our communities. I know you'll enjoy hearing from him today as he shares more information about EMS and the important work happening across South Carolina. Please join me in giving him a warm Rotary welcome, Rob Wronski.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, everybody, for having me here. I am the second string quarterback, but it's not like you got Josh Allen and then whoever is the second string quarterback for the Bills, so nobody really knows. I have been doing this for a while. EMS Navigator was a title I got. This month is actually my 1-year anniversary at the EMS Association. I've been involved in EMS in South Carolina for many years, but when they hired me, they said, you could do like everything, and we need you to do everything, so we're just going to call you the Navigator, and that's what we'll call you. So here I am. It is the end of summer. I know this because my entire summer's been full of we had a new pool installed in our backyard, we had a hot tub put in our backyard, I just had sod put down a couple weeks ago, and this weekend I had palmetto trees delivered to my backyard. I had 3 palmetto trees delivered. I ordered 12-footers, 17-foot palmetto trees showed up in my backyard. If you've ever installed a palmetto tree in your yard, you know that you should have somebody else do it, and I've learned that lesson. I learned to get the sod. I've now learned that I have to get an excavator on Thursday now to put these things in. They weigh about 2,000 pounds a piece. I did not know how much a palmetto tree. But then you realize if they stopped cannonballs during the war, that they're probably pretty heavy, and they're very, very heavy. So thank you again for having me here. We're going to talk a little bit today about, can I wander? We're going to talk a little bit today, EMS in South Carolina, a little bit about where we've come from, where we are today, where we're going to be going with the support of great folks like yourselves in the Rotary, the legislature, who we have some great friends with. For a brief period when I left the state, I was the state EMS director. I worked right across the street over here in this state museum before it collapsed. And I was there for 7.5 years. And when I left there, I did a little bit of lobbying for about a year because I figured it's a natural transition to go from government into lobbying. And I really hated taking 4 showers a day dealing with folks over there. So I moved into private business and worked as a chief business officer for a large company in Montana and got to fly out there once a month, which was really nice. And then took that company to over $35 million, and then realized that I really liked my soul, and I didn't really want to sell my soul. Came back to South Carolina. I've lived here, but I came back here and started working for the EMS Association again. We are going to talk about some of the things that we're moving towards with EMS and medicine in general, with systems of care in South Carolina, because it is not sustainable the way it is now. If you know healthcare, if anybody works in healthcare, knows people that work in healthcare. My wife is an emergency room physician. She hates medicine, and that's what she does. She's done it for 15 years. And just because of all the hoops that she has to jump through for her patients, and if you ever get on the wrong side, if anybody in here is a physician, especially a physician, cardiologist, trauma surgeon, anything like that, and you ever have to go up against my wife, just say yes and turn and walk away, because I've seen her get in people's faces in the emergency room that wouldn't do the right thing. So healthcare is changing. We're hopefully going to change that landscape for healthcare in South Carolina from EMS and really change how people are taken care of here. What it does, what it is, and why it matters. So I got this on Saturday, and I went through it a couple times, and I noticed there are a lot of words on these slides, so I apologize for that. Denise will have it, Laura will have a copy of it if you want it. For anything else, you're welcome to it. And it's just a PowerPoint. So I'm not going to hit every single word, because you would get sick of hearing me for the next 40 minutes. EMS, we are trained professionals, clinical professionals. We don't like being called ambulance drivers. If you ever call a paramedic an ambulance driver, the needle size that you get for an IV will probably go up by 2. Okay, so just remember this. Say, thank you for being my paramedic today, and the needle size will come down a couple. So remember that. We have specialty equipment and vehicles, which we're going to talk about. The cost of those has just skyrocketed, as you can imagine, in the last few years. And the length of time to deliver them has doubled and tripled in some cases. We deliver healthcare to people in need anywhere that you need it, anywhere that you want it, on the water, on land. We fly people around in helicopters. We transport people around on the ground from one end of the state to the other, or from one end of your county to the other. It is healthcare. We are clinicians. We go to school. Paramedics go to school now for almost 2 years. EMTs go to school for 220 hours. That's the first level of EMS that there is. Paramedics are in school for over 2 years, 2,200 hours worth of training and clinical time that would have been a paramedic. EMTs now in the state of South Carolina, we've advocated for their change of scope of practice, and now EMTs in South Carolina can deliver almost 19 different medications, 18 different medications, 19 different ways. Paramedics in the state of South Carolina deliver 80 different medications in the field to people, so including blood, including really, really life-saving medicine that we're using now. It is a system of integrated people, of networks, of fire departments and dispatchers and people who learn CPR on the side of the road, do CPR at 7-Eleven. You're more likely, if you learn CPR from the American Heart Association or the Red Cross, to do it at 7-Eleven than you are to do it anywhere else, believe it or not, or some sort of Spinks. I think wait, here works for Spinks or QT, I'm sorry, QT, Spinks, 7-Eleven, any place like that. And it is a community resource. We are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. EMS was made an essential service 2 years ago in the state of South Carolina, thanks to the legislature. We're one of only 15 states where EMS is designated, like the fire department and like the police department, as an essential service. It didn't give us any more funding, but it does help us make better arguments when we do go to the legislature for things like funding and different statutes and laws that we need changed or passed. And in South Carolina, we are, believe it or not, we are ahead of the curve on so many things as far as EMS is concerned. We may be 15 years behind on some other things, but we are ahead of things in South Carolina. We have a paid EMS service in every single county in South Carolina. Many other states is 50% volunteer, 60%. New Jersey's 50% volunteer. And the volunteer side of EMS in New Jersey is unregulated, so don't ever move to New Jersey for any reason whatsoever. But we have a paid EMS service in South Carolina in every single county. So you have EMS available to you. It may take them a little while to get there sometimes, but there is an ambulance coming to you in South Carolina. Quick by the numbers, we have 236 licensed agencies, just over 15,000 licensed providers in the state. And we'll talk about this. It seems like an awful lot, right? But a lot of these folks work in hospitals. A lot of them work in doctor's office. A lot of them just work inter-facility transports. Not everybody's a 911 EMT or paramedic. Last year, 1.93 million calls for service in South Carolina. I'll let that sink in, and that is up. We'll go over the numbers here in a little bit. That is way up from the year before and way up from the year before that. Why? In case you haven't noticed, you got new neighbors, right? All over the place. I live in Greenville. We've got a ton of new neighbors in Greenville. We had a cow pasture next to us. It's been a cow pasture forever that now has 3 $1.2 million homes sitting in the middle of it because we've got new neighbors moving in. A lot of people moving in. Every 16 seconds is a 911 call for EMS service. 46 counties are served. 44 or 46 counties have ambulance deserts. This means that there's an ambulance, there's people that live in your county. There are people that live in your county or a county in 44 of the counties that is at least 25 minutes from an ambulance station in that county. So there are 44 of those counties. And again, if you think about Calhoun County, that's one of them because they're so tiny, you can't really live 25 minutes from anywhere in Calhoun County. And we have, this is the number we like people to really focus in on, 839 calls per 1,000 residents. So 84% of our residents use 911, or a percentage of 840 per 1,000 residents, which is the 8th highest in the United States. 911 EMS is a primary care provider for medical care for many people in South Carolina. And we're going to talk about why we're changing EMS to help fit this model. What do? We don't do much. We run up and down the road with licensed sirens, throw people in the back of the ambulance. Don't say ambulance driver. If one thing happens today, don't call anybody an ambulance driver because the needles, they go up and down. So this is the full scope. Again, this is one of the things I won't read again, all of it. We do 911 emergency response. Yep, 46 counties, anywhere from, I think Greenville now and Charleston are probably up to 30 or 32 ambulances a day on the road, 24 hours a day. Calhoun County, McCormick County has 2.5 ambulances. They've got 2 for 24 hours and 1 for 12 hours on the road every day. Anywhere in between that, Richland County I think has 2, because I just see them run the wheels off those ambulances all over, but they have more than that, but they're always busy. Interfacility transfers, if you are sick and you're in Winsboro, or you're sick and you're in Lancaster County and you get to MUSC Lancaster and the doctor and the nurse there say you need to go somewhere else in the interfacility, either a helicopter if you're really bad off, or a critical care truck or another paramedic truck will pick you up in Lancaster and bring you into Florence, or take you into Charleston or Columbia, fly you to the burn center in Augusta. But that's what interfacility transport paramedics do and EMTs. These folks are really highly trained. I have a lecture next week for GEMS magazine on critical care pharmacology, and I had to go back and review some of the pharmacology that critical care paramedics have, because they can manage 8 different pumps at a time, and medications and blood and a ventilator. These paramedics are very highly trained, very specialized in what they do. Non-emergency clinical care, we do stuff like take care of patients that are on ventilators, but have been on ventilators for a very long time. So they're at home. Usually the parents or the relatives or whoever's taking care of the patient at home know the ventilators better than we do, but we're there for support and to help them, and it's less than the cost of a nurse, but definitely have the advantage of having somebody there who's medically trained and also familiar with the equipment. Dialysis and recurring care, this is not interfacility paramedics, but these are folks that run the roads every single day. You pick up your dialysis patients that are homebound and need an ambulance to transport them in a wheelchair van. There are thousands of people in South Carolina that are on dialysis, and they have to be taken in 3 times a week, every day, or they get much sicker, and that's what these folks do. They take them in for wound care, they take them in for other recurring type transports. Community paramedicine is not new in South Carolina. We kicked it off in 2015 when I was at the state, but it's really starting to take traction and gain, because this is one of the directions we're going with treating people at home, treating people that recurringly call 911 as their primary care providers. We, in South Carolina, 80% of our calls are run for 27% of the population. So these are people that just call and call and call. We run patients. I was mentioned I'm a volunteer firefighter. I can't get it out of my system. I've been a firefighter paramedic since 1991, many years. And I volunteer for this little tiny station in Lawrence County, in the corner of Greenville County where I live. And yesterday we got a call for an address that we all know very well. And we're there all the time. And sometimes these people call 8, 10, 12, 15 times a month to get transported to the emergency room, because that's what they consider their primary care. And so we'll talk a little bit about community paramedics on and disaster response and mass casualty response. We do this when hurricanes come. I had 7 hurricanes, a flood, upstate freeze while I was as the state director. We added it up when I took this job, because they said, maybe you can be our emergency manager. And I said, well, I can do emergency management too, but I have over 4,200 hours in the Emergency Operations Center over here at DPH now, out in Casey. So we did that. We just finished a deployment where the EMS Association ran the deployment of ambulances to Cherokee County. Cherokee County, if anyone's not familiar, they had a private transport company that was providing their 911 services. They didn't feel like they were getting the service that they needed from the contract, so they decided to put them on a 6-month notice in January, and they had to build a system from January till July 1st. And about 60 days beforehand, they started really shorting of ambulances and not sending them all the ambulances. So we deployed 3 ambulances and a quick response vehicle, a QRV, a Tahoe that you see running around. We deployed from across the state, from Abbeville to Fort Mill to Dorchester County. Ambulances went to Cherokee County every day for 52 days. And had 3 extra ambulances and a QRV to Cherokee County. We managed that for the entire time, and now they're up and running. And congratulations to them. The poor guys moved down here had no idea that's what he was going to be doing when he moved down in January, and they hit him with that. So here's what happens when you call 911. A dispatcher gets the call. A lot of places dispatchers are trained in emergency medicine, and they go through a list of questions to ask to figure out what status they need to give, what resources they need to send. Do I need a fire department? Do I need the ambulance too? Do I need to dispatch a helicopter? Lots of places in my district in Lawrence County where we're far enough away from a trauma center or a stroke center or a heart center. If it comes in and it looks like a heart attack or looks like a stroke or bad trauma, they actually drop a helicopter on the call and they start spinning things up, and then we get there and say, actually, well, we don't need them, or launch them. Response and scene, They're there within minutes, usually 8 to 10 minutes is a goal that a lot of places have. I really got crazy with that when I was the state EMS director and said, I don't care what your response time are, tell me what your outcomes are. Tell me that you're saving people. Tell me that people are going home. Tell me that you're saving, life and limb. I don't care if you got there in 8 minutes or 9.5 minutes. Your county council might, but I need to know what your outcomes are. And we sort of changed the thinking of that for a while. And they do all kinds of stuff when we get there. 12-lead EKGs. We're doing antibiotics now on scene for people who we suspect are septic. We're doing tons and tons of things. We carry blood products now on many ambulances and QRVs in the state. It used to just be on the helicopters, and now a lot of counties, even little Lawrence counties, carrying blood in their QRVs because it really does make a difference in mortality and morbidity. We do all of these things for a long time before the patient gets to the hospital, 20 minutes, 30 minutes sometimes. And we're on our own out there. We have doctors we can call, but we do have protocols, books, thick books of protocols that we have to follow. Again, starting IVs, drawing blood, doing blood testing for sepsis, for any number of things that we can do out there, checking for heart attacks, checking for strokes. We've got tons and tons of equipment that we use now to help us figure out before we get to the hospital so we can give a better picture for the doctors. We transmit all this stuff to the hospital. We tell them everything that the patient tells us. Then the patient changes their mind when they get to the hospital and tells the doctor everything completely different than what we did. It's a running joke. It happens every once in a while. You'll take somebody to the hospital that's got a stomach ache, and you treat them for the stomach pain, and you get them to the hospital. The doctor says, "What's going on?" And they say, "Oh man, I've had this chest pain so bad." And the doctor looks at you and goes, "What? I'm like, "Yeah, tell me this having chest pain." And then we transfer care to the hospital. We turn over to a higher level of care, either to a nurse or to a physician, and we finish our reports, get the reports over, and it becomes part of the patient's medical record. EMS is healthcare. It's not transportation. That's the last thing I'm going to say. Don't say ambulance drivers, please. It's not transportation. It's not delivery service. And we're gonna kill this word right here, reimbursement too. We are licensed healthcare providers. We go through a lot to be licensed. We go through background checks every 4 years. We have a national license from the National Registry of EMTs that we have to maintain. We have a state license every 4 years that we have to maintain. Thank goodness, still in South Carolina, it's free to do that. You have to pay for your background check, but everybody pays for it. Teachers and doctors and everybody has to pay for their own background check. It's $35. I had somebody just move here from California, and he was in Los Angeles. It was $2,100 every time he wanted to renew his paramedic license because he needed a state license, he needed a Los Angeles County license, he needed a Los Angeles City license. So they just, whatever they can do. So it's still free in South Carolina to renew your EMT license. We do operate under physician medical direction, so we can call a doc if we need to, but many times it's just in our protocols. They sign off on what protocols they allow us to do in the field, and we're allowed to do these things under their supervision just by the signatures that they have. We do assess and diagnose people. A lot of EMTs will tell you, well, we're not supposed to diagnose patients. I was like, you better diagnose that patient. I was like, no, we're just supposed to figure out what's going on. No, you better diagnose the patient. We document it and integrate it into the healthcare record. And again, 1.93 million calls last year were entered into the system, so we have tons and tons and tons of data that we can pull from to do research. And we measure the outcomes, yay, and we do continuous improvement. We have statutes now and laws and regulations that say every EMS agency that works in South Carolina has to have a QA/QI committee. They have to do QA on a certain number of calls that they do every day, and there are specific calls: cardiac arrest, anybody that you intubate, put a breathing tube in, anybody that's on a ventilator, everybody you give blood to, cardiac arrest. All these things have to be QA specifically as well, besides the percentage of calls you have to do. Here's the gap. Excuse me, I'm gonna stick a couple weeks here. Medicare and Medicaid, we are reimbursed, and I hate this word reimbursed. So this is the other thing. Besides ambulance drivers, this is the other thing. It's like saying that you go to Walmart and you reimburse them when you buy a pound of bananas. You don't reimburse them for a pound of bananas, you buy a pound of bananas. This is healthcare that's being delivered in the field. We're not being reimbursed for this. EMS is running calls. We, in a good county, in a good area, Hilton Head, Mount Pleasant, some parts of Greenville, you're getting 75 to 80% reimbursement. You're getting paid for your calls. 20% of those calls are going unpaid for. Places like Williamsburg County, 60-65% of the calls are going unreimbursed. But they're not getting paid for these calls. They're going for free. South Carolina pays only 3 to 35% of the Medicare rate for EMS, which means if an EMS call, we bill $1,000 for an EMS call to pick you up, take you 20 miles to the hospital, treat you, put you on an EKG, give you some medicine, start an IV, charge you $1,000 for that. Medicaid is going to pay us about $340 for that call. It has to be made up by the counties, made up by the services. The profit margins, if anybody ever approaches you and here's your business tip for the day, I have an MBA, your business tip for the day is if anybody ever approaches you to start an EMS service, start a private ambulance company, tell them to go away and do something that is physically impossible to themselves, because the profit margin for a private EMS agency in the state of South Carolina is 3 to 5%. And that is the people that are doing it right, taking care of patients, spending the money the way they should be spending the money. They make 3 to 5% for a profit margin. And God bless them, because a lot of them don't make that much. And if we didn't have them, we wouldn't have any inter-facility transports going on because of the rates like this. And again, recognition gap. We are trained to the same standard as many folks in the hospitals are trained to, and we take care of these people without having another doctor around. I have done intubations on the floor of living rooms. I have had people pulled out of burning buildings that were still smoking that we had to treat, and there's me and another EMT or me and a couple firefighters on the scene having to take care of this patient. And then you get to the hospital, and there's 11 people standing around. There's a trauma surgeon, there's a cardiac person, and there's this, and there's 4 nurses, and there's 2 techs, and we don't have that in the field. Our healthcare system, again, kind of went over this a little bit. Here's where we fall into it. We are the on-scene assessment, treatment, and decision makers to figure out exactly what we think is going on with this patient. I've been fooled before. People fool me all the time. I tell all my EMT students, I still teach an EMT class every couple of years just to stay in it. And I tell people that a patient can throw up on command, they can have stomach pain, they can tell you they have a headache, they can fake all kinds of stuff, but the skin never lies. So you look at their skin, you have to look at their skin and you'll figure out exactly what's going on with the patient. But we do make a lot of decisions, and I've been fooled sometimes. My students get fooled every once in a while, but we make really good decisions. We're trained. We have to maintain continuing education 48 hours a year that we have to do to maintain our certification, to get certified every 2 years or every 4 years for the state. And we're continuously doing quality improvement, quality assurance. We're learning new things. The EMT scope of practice was just increased by 3 more drugs in June of this year, so they got 3 more drugs that the EMTs can give. Paramedics, depending on what service you work for, we can give 80-some medications now. Some services will do 60, some services will do all 80 of them. And so you're continuously learning how each of these medicines work with each other, or in some cases work against each other, or what the patient's taking. If this is a 70-year-old patient that's polypharmacy and they're taking 17 different medications, is what I'm going to give them going to affect what happens to them when I need to give this medication. So I'm not going to say we're doctors or nurses, but we do need to be pharmacists and EMTs and paramedics and sometimes counselors. Sometimes when I go to someone's house, and I tell my students this as well, sometimes the best thing you can do for somebody is nothing at all. Is just sit there, put them on the cot, hold their hand, take them in, maybe take a set of vital signs if they're going to be okay with that, and maybe just hold their hand and get them to the hospital, because it's been that kind of a day for them. And then some of them require every piece of equipment you have on the ambulance. Get them to the ER, turn them over. They are pre-notified. We have to call in every single patient that we bring in. We call either the transport center, or we call the hospital directly and tell them what we have coming in, so they're ready for us when we get there. And again, they can have all of these people standing around. If it is a smaller hospital, we take a cardiac arrest, for example. If you have a cardiac arrest in the field, you take them to whatever hospital is closest. And it could be one of these 24-hour emergency departments that are around with no admission. And if we get the patient back, or they get the patient back when we get to the hospital, they have to be transferred to another high level of care. So we've got one in Simpsonville now. There's a Bon Secours. A lot of cardiac arrests end up going there because they're coming from the southern end of Greenville County and the northern end of Lawrence County, and that's where they go because it's before you even get to Hillcrest. So they go there, and then if they bring them back, which we do in many cases, they have to be transferred out again. So that's where our specialty care and inter-facility folks happen. And then people get discharged, hopefully. And that's where we come in to play with our community paramedicine programs. Access in rural South Carolina, we do have ambulances in every single county. We probably don't have enough in some of our rural counties. Marlboro, Dillon, Marion, Bamberg. These counties just don't. Orangeburg has, 8 ambulances on the road, but it's a monster-sized county, and they're always running with a status 0, which means they don't have any ambulances running, so they're coming from Dorchester, they're coming down from Calhoun, or, occasionally coming over from the more rural counties to their west. Their response times are nearly double because, again, pine trees don't pay taxes. Boy, I used to hear that. The old EMS director in McCormick County is telling me all the time, Ronsky, pine trees don't pay taxes. And I'm like, I get it, I understand, but you're doing the best you can do. And they just can't keep enough ambulances on the road because an ambulance, a basic life support ambulance, a BLS with 2 EMTs on it, not even a paramedic, 2 EMTs on it, needs to run 3 paid calls per day. So 3 of the calls have to be paid per day just to pay the cost of having that ambulance on the road for that day. And it doesn't happen a lot, especially in rural counties. Hospital closures are increasing. Fortunately, some hospitals are being closed, some are being bought up. We have these emergency rooms that are opening up all over. They're unregulated now because they got rid of the statute at DPH for having to have these things pre-approved, and now we're building hospitals that you can see across the street, 300-bed hospitals. How they're going to maintain and stay profitable, I do not know yet, but more power to them. We have, again, ambulance deserts in 44 of our counties. When they're understaffed, the communities just don't have ambulances that are coming right now. They call mutual aid. Spartanburg can go to Cherokee. Dorchester can run up to Orangeburg if it has an ambulance available. But again, many times, especially during the summer, when things are busy, things are hot, things are going on, they just don't have the resources to send. And you could be waiting 25, 35, 40 minutes for an ambulance to come to your house. Community paramedic programs, again, extend clinical reach between emergencies and underserved areas. And again, these are programs that we're starting. We'll talk a little bit about them. Mobile integrated healthcare is the long word for it. Community paramedics, our paramedic programs we started. Our first one actually was in Abbeville County, of all the places that started. Now we've got them in 16 counties where paramedics work with their local hospitals, work with their local doctors, and patients that are coming in all the time get assigned to a community paramedic. The community paramedic then meets with this patient after they get out of the hospital, and they go to their home and they do a home safety inspection. They check and see if they're taking their medications. They check and make sure they have all their medications. One of the key cases that we always highlighted for the first couple of years in Abbeville County was a gentleman who had called 911 on an average 25 times a month. He was a COPD patient. He couldn't breathe. He was going to the hospital all the time. Hospital wasn't getting their money. EMS certainly wasn't getting their money for bringing him to the hospital. And so they assigned him one of the first community paramedics in Abbeville. They went to his house. He lived with 3 smokers in the house because they couldn't afford to live anywhere else. So he lived with these people. And on the dining room table was stacks and stacks and stacks of Medicaid paperwork. And he said, why? I thought you would, yeah, they give me this paperwork all the time, but I'm gonna tell you something, Billy, I can't read. And the guy couldn't, and he never told anybody. So he helped him fill out the paperwork. They got him the paperwork. They got him different housing, and he called twice in the next year. After they got him out of the housing, he called EMS twice in the next year. That's what community paramedicine does. That's one of the things that we do, just to help people who are continuously feel like they have to call 911 and don't have any resources. There are community paramedics here in Richland County, and last I checked, last I knew, a couple years ago, they had more than 415 different resources that they could turn people onto for food, for housing, for care, for transportation. That's the big one, is getting people transported, to get them to their doctor's appointments and get them to their pharmacies to pick up their medication. So that's what one of the things the community paramedics is doing, that we're changing the face of healthcare. 225 rural EMS providers received education support through SCORE tuition assistance since 2015. We, God bless Lindsey Graham, rest his soul, just 2 years ago got congressionally directed funding from him because we provided our case to him that said we need 300% more people going to EMT school. We didn't have a shortage of 300%, but the amount of people we were losing and people that were going back into the system, by 2030, we need 300% more people to be involved. And he gave us some congressionally directed funding as well to get people in EMT school. So now we've got more people, not enough yet, but we have more people going into EMS. But SCORE also definitely has been a big help for us in South Carolina. So, we just talked about somebody at Chick-fil-A making $19 an hour, and your average EMT 2023, with the bump, this from 2021 to 2023, that's a COVID bump. A lot of healthcare providers got COVID bumps. We were the healthcare heroes during COVID. I was at DPH, their DHEC during COVID. We weren't healthcare heroes over there. I left right in the middle. I was one of the burnouts. I was one of the public health burnouts that just could not stay for. I was there for a year. But 8% from 2021 to 2023, from almost $17 to $18.29. That's the average pay. And it's not much more than that now. It's not much more than $19 for paramedics and $25 for EMTs and $25 for paramedics. Up again from 21 to 25 with that little COVID bump that everybody got. Everybody got more money. Counties got more money. Got to keep our EMS people happy. And we lost a ton of providers. Not to death. We had 5 or 6 people die from COVID that were in EMS during COVID, but we lost people that just couldn't do it anymore, could not run any more COVID calls, could not take any more sick people to the hospital, could not rip families from seeing each other and take them to the hospital knowing that they were that sick and probably weren't going to see their family again. We lost tons and tons of providers to COVID. Rising demand, again, 17, almost 18% increase year over year in calls. Reimbursement, there's that word again, flat reimbursement. Medicare, Medicaid reimbursements have stayed pretty flat for us. We do have a small, if you have a super rural county, there's a small bump. There's a 6% bump in Medicare and Medicaid in rural counties for calls. But reimbursement, which again, it's not reimbursement. We're not being reimbursed for these calls. We're being paid for these calls. We're gonna try and get away from that word. But they have not kept pace with the cost of training, with the cost of equipment, diesel fuel, ambulances. We'll talk about that here in a minute. What happens when we have gaps, when we have not enough people working in the system? We have longer response times. We can't position our units as strategically as we'd like to. We can't keep as many trucks on the road as we want to. Like I mentioned earlier, McCormick County has 2.5 ambulances. They have one 12-hour and 2 24-hour ambulances. They would love to take that other ambulance 24 hours, but the cost of doing that, because of the amount of calls that it would run on the overnight, just does not make sense for them to do it. It costs too much money. Coverage gaps, again, when a shift can't stay staffed, when ambulances can't stay on the road because somebody has to call in sick or there's not enough people to fill the shifts, because rural EMS does not make, those are average pay numbers that I showed you up there. So that means that's the middle. A lot of them are a lot lower than that, some of them a little bit higher. Pickens County, nobody in here lives in Pickens County, but if you live in Pickens County Council just made their paramedics the highest paid paramedics in the state this past spring, and they're about $68,000 a year. So that's the highest paid paramedics in the state are making about $68,000 a year, and they run the wheels off their trucks up there. When people are delayed, people come in by POV or not at all, and they get sicker. Or they just get dumped off at the emergency room, and they're waiting in the waiting room, and the waiting rooms get backed up. When the waiting rooms are backed up, we get backed up. Wall times in Greenville County, don't get my wife started on wall times. Don't ever say the 2-word wall times to my wife, because she is the medical director for Greer Hospital, and she is just beside herself. But sometimes she will go down and buy the paramedics Jimmy John. She'll order Jimmy John subs and bring them because they've been on the wall for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, waiting for a bed for a patient to get off the cot and get into an emergency room bed. 3 hours in some cases. They shoot for 30 minutes. So that the shoot for time to get you off of a cot and into an emergency room bed is 30 minutes in most hospitals. Recurring care, again, if we can't keep our inter-facility trucks, or not our inter-facility, our recurrent trucks and EMS folks staffed, which again is way on the lower end of the pay scale of taking people back and forth to dialysis. People don't get back and forth to dialysis. People have gaps. And Medicare, Medicaid does not realize that I have to drive 35 miles one way to pick this patient up and take them to dialysis and then take them back home again. They just don't recognize those numbers. They pay you a flat rate for a certain amount of miles that is not 35. I'll tell you that. It's about 12 miles that they'll pay for. Agencies operating with unstable reimbursement face closure, which they do. We've lost, on an average, about 3 private ambulance companies a year. They either get bought out or just go out of business. And again, it expands the desert, so not just having the desert where you don't live within a certain amount of time from an ambulance, but if you do get to Lancaster, MUSC Lancaster, it could take you a day to get to Florence or to get to Charlotte, even if you're going up that way or coming down into Richland, because an ambulance doesn't exist that can make that run for you because they're not staffed. We definitely measurably improve outcomes, cardiac events, strokes, traumas, all kinds of time-sensitive emergencies that EMS handles in the field. We make a difference. We truly do. We have medicines and we have equipment that rivals what we had when I started a long time ago, and we. For example, our sepsis program, I see sepsis up here. Sepsis program, when we started doing sepsis across the state, we had 4 counties that were doing it as a pilot. Now most every county is doing sepsis. We're doing reception in the field. We've measured mortality decrease of 17% for those 4 counties that we're doing it, which means, and we translate that into every 15 minutes earlier that a patient that is in true septic shock gets antibiotics in their system, it was a 2% decrease in mortality. And so that's how we proved to all the hospitals, because when we started doing 12-lead EKGs in the field to send them pictures of people's hearts, they scoffed at us and said, "Oh, please, that'll never make a difference." And it does. They said the same thing with sepsis, it's never going to make a difference, and we now just about every county in the state's giving antibiotics because we proved every 15 minutes is a 2% reduction in mortality. Here's what the costs are. I know everybody hates seeing cost increases and costs. Everybody's sort of new to it. But, come on, over there. Did somebody sneeze? 36% fuel costs, which is, again, spiked right now, obviously, for obvious reasons in the Middle East, which is a little bit more than that, but it's been averaging about 36%, 12% in medical supplies. They're not getting any cheaper. And when COVID hit, when prices went up, guess what? They've stayed there. They haven't come down that much. Ambulance costs, again, chassis were so hard to come by during COVID, and they're just so backed up now. And I think there's a little bit of stalling in bringing these things up to keep the costs up, but they're anywhere from 25 to 50%. An ambulance that used to cost $120,000, $130,000 is easily $300,000. Now, without any equipment, and if that's without a $25,000 power stretcher, or a $30,000 cardiac monitor, or all the other supplies that go inside there. And here's our reimbursement. 33% is what Medicare has given us, 35% Medicaid for ALS, calls, advanced life support calls. 19 to 24, we've had 18% Medicare increase, and that was, again, a lot of that was because of COVID that we got that money. And we do, again, there's those ambulance deserts where people in 96% of our counties live more than 25 minutes. How am I doing? Am I over? Beautiful. Future of EMS. We're going to go forward. Thank you. I'm kidding. We are doing mobile integrated health, community paramedicine. We are doing, is it last call? Last call, everybody. Last call. Get to the bar. That gives me 30 seconds. Community paramedicine, mobile integrated health. We're going in front of the legislature this year with the new vision for EMS in South Carolina. This is one of the things I joined on for because this is advocacy is what I do for EMS. And when Henry presented me these plans, I said, I'm in, I'm on board, let's go get them. We're going to be doing alternative destinations for patients. A mental health patient in my wife's ER in Greer has been in that ER for 17 days. They can't get them placed anywhere. They can't find a place to put them. They can't figure out who's going to take care of them. They can't figure out who's going to pay for it. 17 days in the emergency room in a mental health crisis. We are going to change that. We are going to allow our paramedics and EMTs in the field to do mental health telehealth with a provider, even if it's in Charleston, if it's at MUSC or Institute of Psychiatry, MUSC in Charleston, get on with somebody and say, this person is this, that, and the other thing, and here they are on the tele thing, and yes, we're going to bring them to you. And then they will take them to Charleston instead of taking them to a hospital where they're not going to get treated for 2 weeks at a time. We're going to take somebody with a twisted ankle who doesn't need to go to an emergency room to the local doc in the box, to the local urgent care. And right now, if you do that, you don't get reimbursed, you don't get paid for it. That's why we can't do it right now. An ambulance cannot take you to an urgent care and get paid for it. We're gonna change that. Treat and release protocols. If you treat somebody's a diabetic, they take their insulin, they don't eat anything, their sugar goes down to 12, we get on scene, start an IV, give them some sugar, wake them up, they decide that they don't want to go to the hospital. Cost for that call, $600. Reimbursement for that call, $0. If you don't transport a patient, you don't get paid. There is no treat, no transport. We're gonna get treat and release protocols, treat, no transport, some of that money. Telehealth, like I said, data-driven system designs. We are deep in our data. We are deep in our data. And sustainable, again, reimbursement. We are advocating. Don't call another paramedic or an EMT an ambulance driver, and my work here will be done. Please support any reimbursement reform that you see come across when it comes through the legislature. Ambulance add-on extensions, again, this is for rural areas and super rural areas. Invest when you can into tuition assistance, retention initiatives. We do have a foundation. I'm not asking anybody for donations today, but if you can support in some way, we really do appreciate that. And partner with us. We are ready to be stronger in our delivery. All of the things that I just mentioned to you about telehealth, about taking alternative destinations, alternative transport, even if a patient doesn't need to go in an ambulance, we can put them in a QRV to take them to the hospital, and we'll take them to QRV. All of these things are currently not in law in South Carolina. It's things we're going to be advocating for the next 2 to 4 years. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate it. I'll make sure that's on.
We've got a couple minutes for questions.
Oh, no, we don't. We don't have to.
Rebecca's got her microphone, so she's gonna scooch around real quick.
We'll do questions.
I have a lot of questions, but I'll limit it to one.
2,000 pounds. A palmetto tree weighs 2,000 pounds.
Thank you so much. So you talked about with cardiac arrest, you go to the nearest hospital. Okay, so this spring, Cigna and Lexington Medical parted ways. They didn't like each other. So if you're in that situation, let's take something less than cardiac arrest, some other ailment, but you knew you didn't have insurance, but it's the closest. How do you navigate that? How do the EMTs navigate that? And along with that same question, are there sometimes specialty hospitals that you go to, like I hear about trauma levels or things?
Right.
Could you speak to that, please?
Yes, ma'am. So an EMT or a paramedic in an ambulance does not ask for insurance information until after we're in the hospital. I don't care if you have insurance. We don't, it doesn't matter to us. When you call us, we will pick you up and we will take you to the hospital. And I don't care how many times this month we've done it. In an acute emergency, most insurances, unless you know Dr. Glaucomflecken, if anybody follows Dr. Glaucomflecken on Twitter or that, he had a cardiac arrest and he had a $20,000 out of network bill that he got for having a cardiac arrest at home. How dare he? But most of those are covered as out of network as long as they're critical issues. And again, taking somebody to a hospital and getting them transferred if they do happen to get them back. And there are different levels of hospitals. And because we wrote the laws correctly in 2017, the last time we did it when I was a DHEC, you can now bypass a hospital. You don't have to go to, if I'm out in Irmo or Newbury, I can come past the first Prisma hospital out there if I have a bad trauma or a cardiac or a stroke to go to Prisma Richland, because it is a cardiac center, it's a stroke center, it's a level 1 trauma center. And each trauma, there's 3 levels of trauma centers. Level 3 just has some operating rooms open. A level 2 is pretty advanced, and a level 1 has research and residents and all kinds of neat stuff on level 1. Same thing with the cardiac centers that have 24-hour cath labs, and stroke centers that can actually do interventional radiology, go into your brain with a wire. There's half a dozen of those in South Carolina. You can bypass or fly to these hospitals. 100%. 100%. Yep, we do. We do. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Gracie. I'm a type 1 diabetic, so I've been in a few ambulances. And what you said about skin, they bypassed Narcaning me because they saw a tan line from my skin. So
God bless.
very, yeah, I know. But if I have the choice, I'm not gonna take the ride to the hospital once I'm okay.
Right.
And y'all get like now I feel bad.
Don't ever feel
I
bad about
don't
it.
really
No,
feel
no,
bad.
don't
but-
ever feel bad about it. We don't know your circumstances, and I am not here to judge any
No,
person.
but like, how do
I've
y'all-
taken in my share of homeless people. I was in a house last night that was infested with bedbugs, and we don't judge, and I would never judge, because I don't know if you took your insulin and then forgot something or got an emergency phone call and got distracted on something and your sugar just dropped. There's no reason for me to ever judge you. And there used to be the people I was the hardest on when I was a state bureau chief, was people that would judge their patients. Because if you're gonna judge somebody, go drive a tractor trailer, because I don't need you.
Feel judged, but I feel like it's wrong that
Nope.
y'all can't provide the care and then leave.
And that's what we're working for. So
Okay.
if you see or can support any of the initiatives that you're gonna see with the changing and innovation of EMS in South Carolina, because we're gonna try to make this as nationwide as we can, that would be great. Because no, there's no payment for treat, no transport, which is fine. You know, we call it the car wrecks all the time, where somebody might have a cut finger, or they twisted their ankle or whatever. They don't go to the hospital. We don't get paid for those if we don't transport somebody to the hospital. But it is 100% what we do and why we do it.
One last question.
Last question.
What did you think about Fauci's taking the fifth?
I have a list of doctors that I trust more than Fauci. It's Dr. Pepper. I'm kidding. I won't judge him, of all people, right? Judge not, lest ye be judged. But to come in and testify 200 times and run your mouth for 200 times, and then come in this time when it looks like you might have gotten caught doing something, and take the fifth 111 times, it speaks to me, right? So we did the best we could during COVID. We really did. We listened to the experts. We listened to the science as best we could. South Carolina, Florida, other states stopped listening after a while, which was good. I think we got our kids back in school, and we got moving on with life again. So I think we're going to recover faster than a lot of places, but a lot of places still aren't recovered. Their kids still aren't recovered from it. So.
One quick question. What triggers the 9/11 call?
Mm-hmm.
You go to a scene, followed by a fire truck.
Yes, sir.
Why is that?
Lots of times, for example, last night, Medic 3 is a medic unit that's in my district in Green Pond, Station 17 in Lawrence County, and Medic 3 was out on a call, so the next closest truck was coming from Clinton to where I was in the north end of Lawrence County. So the fire department goes, because we have EMTs and paramedics on the fire department, we can provide care until an ambulance arrives. And so most every state and county, city that you live in now, what's that?
Is that a state law?
It's not a state law. No, sir, it's not. Fire departments, the authority having jurisdiction for a fire department is the fire chief, and the fire chief determines what calls you respond to, and most fire chiefs now across the state are responding to medical calls. Because there's less and less fires now, so the fire departments are justifying their existence, and they're training their folks to be EMTs and paramedics, and they're running medical calls. And 80% of most fire department calls are medical calls nowadays. Yep, 80% of them.
I moved it. We have a little gift for you. Thank you for being.
Henry doesn't get this. I get
You can keep it. You can keep it.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
If you would please stand, and we will close in song.